Hi, I'm Dan Morrill with Google Developer Programs. I bet by now you've seen the application demos that we've posted online, and I hope you're as excited by them as we are. But if you're a developer, you know there's more to it than just a fancy demo. It has to be easy to build those applications as well. And that's what I'm here today to show you. I'm going to build an application for Android using nothing but the tools that are included in our SDK. Let's get started. The first thing we have to do is create a new project. See, I'm using Eclipse, and to create the project, I just go to File, Project, and the project I'm going to create is an Android project. The project name can be whatever you want. In this case, I'm going to call it Hello Android. The package name I am today entering as com.google.android.hello, but of course that's in our company's namespace, and you should feel free to use whatever namespace is appropriate for your organization. The activity name is going to be Hello Android as well. The application name is the human readable name of your application, and this is what will appear in the title bar and window and so on. So once we've entered that data, we go ahead and click Finish, and there's our application. What did this create? Well, if you look in the tree over here, you'll see that we have a source directory, including the file helloandroid.java. This is the entry point file to the application. This is the class that Android runs when you start the application. Let's build an application that knows how to dial the phone. Specifically, let's build an application that lists everyone in my contact list, lets me scroll around, choose one, and then when I select it, it goes ahead and dials that phone number. Let's see how that's built. The first thing that we want to do is check out this file over here called main.xml in the layout directory. This file is what we refer to as an XML-based layout. So in this file, as you can see, right now it has only a single text view that just displays some Hello World text. So the first thing we want to do is change that text so that it no longer says Hello World, and instead has this label instead called name. Then we're going to copy that because we want two of these. And then once we've copied it, we're going to move down a little bit and paste it. And now we've got two copies of it. For the second copy, we're going to remove this text because we don't want it to have fixed text. In this case, we want it to have an ID instead because we're going to refer to the ID from our source code. And so there we are. Now we've got our XML-based layout file. The first thing that we need to do is come up here to the Hello Android class. Currently, it implements or extends the class activity. We actually need it to extend a different class called list activity. List activity is a convenience subclass that really just says, I'm going to display list-oriented information. And it's got a whole bunch of useful methods that we can take advantage of for this application so that we don't have to write them ourselves. The first thing that we're going to do is get access to some data. The Android way of doing that is to use what's known as a content provider. We get access to the content provider system via this method called here. And what that does is it lets us issue a query. In this case, we're querying the system for the entire list of contacts that are available on the phone. In response, we get a cursor. The cursor is what we use to actually access specific data from the query that we requested. Now, we have to tell the UI exactly what we want to display because, of course, the contact list consists of a lot more than just, say, a first name and a phone number. It might also have an email address or a mobile phone number and a home phone number and so on. So what we're going to do is create a mapping. And the mapping tells us which column or name in the content provider that we want to map to which UI element. And so in this specific case, we want to say people.name, which is to say the person's name, gets mapped to the entry that we called row entry in our XML layout. And so just to refresh your memory, I'll switch back to that file and show you right here. You can see that we have an ID that we created and called row entry. And then we call this method setListAdapter. And the list adapter itself is an instance of another class called simpleCursorAdapter, and that's a class that really has all the smarts and all the logic in it to make use of the mapping that we just declared. So to summarize this method real quick, first we get the data, then we map the data from the data source to the user interface, then we create a class that knows how to actually accomplish that mapping, and then we set that to be our current adapter. Once we've done that, that will display things. In other words, it'll show us a list of all our contacts, but what it won't do is it won't let us click on any of them. To click on them, we have to come over here and do one last thing. We need to go to the source and then override a method. The method that we want to override is down here towards the bottom, and it's called on list item click. Click OK, and there we've got a method body. What this method does is this is the method that's called every time the user actually clicks something in the user interface. In this specific case, we want it to dial the phone. And so the first thing that we need to do is create a class called intent. And an intent is really almost kind of a generic concept. What it means is it's a reflection of an application's intention to perform some activity. So I create an intent object, and I say that the specific activity that I want it to perform is call action, which means dial the phone. Obviously, I need to tell it what number to dial, and so I go to the cursor that I got from the content provider. I query the adapter for the specific row that the user clicked on. I extract a little bit of data from it. I set that data on the intent so that now the intent knows what it's supposed to do. And then finally, I call this method startActivity. So when we call startActivity, that's what will actually cause the dialer to appear on the screen and initiate the phone call. But certain operations that the device supports, such as dialing the phone and accessing the user's contact list, are protected, and the user needs to grant permission before an application can access them. And so we have to request that permission via our Android manifest. So if we come over here and double click on this Android manifest file, you'll see that there's already in here a definition of what the contents of our application are, which is what Android manifest does. It's sort of the traffic cop of your application. It specifies its contents as well as what it does. So what we need to do is add 2 lines to this file. The first line that we need to add is a request for a permission called read contacts. This permission, if the user chooses to grant it, will allow the application to access the user's contact list. Similarly, we also need to create or request a permission called call phone. And what that will do is request that the user allow this application to dial the phone. So now that we've done that, we go ahead and save that file. And if we come back up here and run the application again, then hey, there we are. As you can see, it contains all of the entries in my contact list. And hey, let's dial my wife. Well, it's an emulator, so it's not actually going to do anything, but that is how it works. So this is a surprisingly sophisticated example for the number of lines of code that we've done. And throughout the entire application framework, we've really tried to make it this easy to use. And I think that as you explore Android, you'll find it to be very easy and pleasant to develop for. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you think this was time well spent. I thank you for your time, and I hope to see you online.